The galaxy had known nothing but war for 800,000 years. Two ancient civilizations, the Zorathians and the KRYL Empire, had been locked in a brutal stalemate, their hatred for one another etched into the very fabric of their cultures. Entire star systems had been reduced to ash, countless lives extinguished, and yet the conflict raged on, a never-ending cycle of destruction. The Zorathians, with their crystalline warships and plasma lances, clashed against the KRYL's biomechanical dreadnoughts and swarms of drone fighters. Both sides were evenly matched, their technologies evolved to counter one another, and the war had become a grim tradition, a testament to their mutual inability to achieve victory. The galaxy had long since grown weary of their endless struggle, but no one dared intervene. No one, until humanity arrived. Humanity was a newcomer to the galactic stage, a species barely out of its cradle compared to the ancient empires. When they first ventured beyond their solar system, they were met with curiosity and condescension. The Zorathians and KRYL saw them as primitive, their technology rudimentary, their ambitions quaint. Humanity, however, was undeterred. They were explorers, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to understand the universe. They avoided the war, focusing instead on mapping the stars, establishing colonies, and advancing their technology at a pace that surprised even the most jaded observers. But their peaceful existence was shattered when a human colony on the edge of Zorathian space was caught in the crossfire of a battle. The colony, home to over 1 million souls, was obliterated in an instant, reduced to nothing more than a cloud of debris. The Zorathians and KRYL barely noticed, their attention fixed on their eternal struggle. Humanity, however, noticed, and they were not pleased. The destruction of the colony sent shockwaves through human space. For the first time, humanity's leaders were forced to confront the reality of the Galactic War. They could no longer remain neutral, content to watch from the sidelines. The loss of 1 million lives demanded a response, but humanity's leaders were divided. Some called for vengeance, for an immediate and overwhelming strike against both the Zorathians and KRYL. Others urged caution, warning that humanity was not ready to face such ancient and powerful foes. In the end, it was not anger or fear that guided their decision, but something far more powerful: determination. Humanity would not cower, nor would they seek revenge. Instead, they would do what no other species had dared to tempt. They would end the war. The decision was met with disbelief by the galactic community. The Zorathians and KRYL scoffed at the idea, dismissing humanity as arrogant and foolish. Even other neutral species warned against such a reckless course of action. But humanity was undeterred. They had spent decades studying the war, analyzing the tactics and technologies of both sides. They knew the Zorathians and KRYL were evenly matched, their strengths and weaknesses perfectly balanced. What they needed was not more power, but a new approach. And humanity had just the tool for the job. The Eclipse, a warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Eclipse was a culmination of humanity's technological prowess, a vessel designed not to match the Zorathians or KRYL, but to surpass them. It was sleek and angular, its hull coated in a stealth material that rendered it nearly invisible to sensors. Its engines were powered by a quantum singularity, allowing it to move at speeds that defied conventional physics. Its weapons were equally advanced, including a quantum singularity cannon capable of tearing through the strongest shields and armor. But the Eclipse's true strength lay in its crew. Captain Elena Reyes, a veteran of countless missions, led a team of the best and brightest humanity had to offer. Each member of the crew had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their unwavering commitment to the mission. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to risk everything to end the war. As the Eclipse approached the war zone, the crew prepared for the battle ahead. The ship's sensors detected the massive fleets of the Zorathians and KRYL, their ships locked in a deadly dance of destruction. The scale of the conflict was staggering, but the crew of the Eclipse remained focused. They had trained for this moment, and they knew what was at stake. Captain Reyes addressed her crew, her voice steady and resolute. "This is not just about ending a war," she said. "This is about proving that humanity has a place in this galaxy, that we are not just survivors, but a force to be reckoned with. We will show them what we are capable of. We will show them what it means to be human. The Eclipse slipped into the battlefield unnoticed, its stealth systems masking its presence. The Zarathians and KRYLO were too focused on each other to detect the small, unassuming ship, but they would soon learn to fear it. The Eclipse moved with precision, its weapons locking onto the Zarathian flagship. The crew worked in perfect harmony, their movements swift and efficient. The quantum singularity cannon charged, its energy building to a crescendo. And then, with a single shot, the Eclipse changed the course of history. The Zarathian flagship was torn apart, its hull collapsing into a singularity that consumed everything around it. The Zarathian fleet was thrown into chaos, their formations breaking as they struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The KRYLL, sensing an opportunity, launched a full-scale assault, but the Eclipse was already moving, its weapons targeting the KRYLL's command ships. The battle had begun, and humanity was ready to end it. The Eclipse was a marvel of human ingenuity, a warship designed not just to fight, but to dominate. Its sleek, angular frame was a testament to humanity's ability to blend form and function. Its hull coated in a stealth material that absorbed and deflected sensor waves, rendering it nearly invisible to enemy scans. The ship's power source was a quantum singularity, a self-sustaining engine that provided near limitless energy, allowing the Eclipse to operate independently for years if necessary. Its weapons were equally advanced, with the crown jewel being the quantum singularity cannon, a device capable of creating localized black holes that could tear through the strongest shields and armor. But the Eclipse was more than just a collection of advanced technology. It was a symbol of humanity's determination, a vessel built not out of fear or aggression, but out of desire to protect and preserve. And at its heart was its crew, a group of individuals who embodied the best of what humanity had to offer. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her. She was a seasoned officer, her career marked by countless missions and hard-fought victories. But this was different. This wasn't just another mission. This was a chance to change the course of history. She had hand-picked her crew, selecting not just the most skilled, but those who shared her vision of a galaxy free from the endless cycle of war. There was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the ship's tactical officer, whose quick thinking and strategic mind had saved them more than once. Dr. Amara Patel, the chief engineer, whose expertise kept the Eclipse running at peak efficiency. And then there was Ensign Kaito Nakamura, the youngest member of the crew, whose brilliance with the ship's advanced systems had already proven invaluable. Each member of the crew had their own reasons for being here, their own stories of loss and hope, but they were united by a common purpose. They were here to end the war. The Eclipse had been en route to the war zone for weeks, its crew using the time to prepare for the battle ahead. They had studied the Zarathians and KRYLO extensively, analyzing their tactics, their strengths, and their weaknesses. They knew the Zarathians relied on their crystalline warships, which were nearly impervious to conventional weapons but vulnerable to precise, high-energy attacks. The KRYLL, on the other hand, favored overwhelming numbers, their biomechanical dreadnoughts supported by swarms of drone fighters. Both sides were formidable, but the Eclipse had been designed to counter them. Its stealth systems would allow it to move undetected, its speed and agility would let it outmaneuver the KRYLL swarms, and its quantum singularity cannon would punch through the Zarathians' defenses. But the crew knew that technology alone wouldn't win this battle. They would need to be smarter, faster, and more determined than their enemies. And they were ready. As the Eclipse entered the war zone, the crew's focus sharpened. The ship's sensors detected the massive fleets of the Zarathians and KRYLO, their ships locked in a deadly dance of destruction. The scale of the conflict was staggering, but the crew remained calm. They had trained for this moment, and they knew what was at stake. Captain Reyes addressed her crew, her voice steady and resolute. "This is not just about ending a war," she said. "This is about proving that humanity has a place in this galaxy, that we are not just survivors, but a force to be reckoned with. We will show them what we are capable of. We will show them what it means to be human." The Eclipse slipped into the battlefield unnoticed, its stealth systems masking its presence. The Zarathians and KRYLO were too focused on each other to detect the small, unassuming ship, but they would soon learn to fear it. The Eclipse moved with precision, its weapons locking onto the Zarathian flagship. The crew worked in perfect harmony, their movements swift and efficient. The quantum singularity cannon charged, its energy building to a crescendo. And then, with a single shot, the eclipse changed the course of history. The Zarathian flagship was torn apart, its hull collapsing into a singularity that consumed everything around it. The Zarathian fleet was thrown into chaos, their formations breaking as they struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The KRYLL, sensing an opportunity, launched a full-scale assault, but the eclipse was already moving, its weapons targeting the KRYLL's command ships. The battle had begun, and humanity was ready to end it. The eclipse moved like a shadow, its stealth systems allowing it to strike with impunity. The KRYLL swarms of drone fighters were no match for the ship's advanced targeting systems, which picked them off with surgical precision. The Zarathians, still reeling from the loss of their flagship, tried to regroup, but the eclipse was relentless. Its quantum singularity cannon fired again and again, each shot creating a black hole that tore through the enemy fleets. The crew worked tirelessly, their movements coordinated and efficient. Lieutenant Hale directed the ship's weapons with pinpoint accuracy, while Dr. Patel kept the engines running at full power. Ensign Nakamura monitored the ship's systems, ensuring that everything was functioning perfectly. And through it all, Captain Reyes remained calm and focused, her steady hand guiding the ship through the chaos. The battle was fierce, but the eclipse was unstoppable. The Zarathians and KRYLL, so used to fighting each other, were unprepared for this new threat. They tried to adapt to counter the eclipse's tactics, but it was no use. The ship was too fast, too agile, and too powerful. And as the minutes ticked by, it became clear that the tide of the battle had turned. The Zarathians and KRYLL, once so confident in their superiority, were now on the defensive, and the eclipse was just getting started. The eclipse moved through the battlefield like a ghost, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to the panic sensors of the Zarathians and KRYLL. The ship's quantum singularity cannon had already struck the Zarathian flagship, reducing it to a collapsing singularity that consumed several nearby vessels. The Zarathian fleet, once a disciplined and formidable force, was now in disarray. Their formations broke apart as ships scrambled to avoid the gravitational pull of the newly formed black hole. Communications were jammed, orders went unanswered, and the once proud fleet descended into chaos. The KRYLL, seeing their ancient enemies falter, seized the opportunity to press their advantage. Their biomechanical dreadnoughts surged forward, their swarms of drone fighters descending on the Zarathians like a plague. But the eclipse was not done. It had come to end the war, and it would not stop until both fleets were neutralized. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the holographic displays that showed the unfolding battle. The eclipse's sensors tracked every movement, every shift in the enemy's formations. The crew worked with precision, their training and discipline evident in every action. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the tactical officer, directed the ship's weapons with deadly accuracy. Each shot from the quantum singularity cannon was calculated to maximize destruction, targeting key vessels and creating new singularities that disrupted the enemy's movements. Dr. Amar Patel monitored the ship's systems, ensuring that the engines and weapons operated at peak efficiency. Ensign Kaito Nakamura, the youngest member of the crew, kept a close watch on the ship's stealth systems, making sure the eclipse remained undetected. The crew was a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part in the unfolding symphony of destruction. The KRYLL's assault on the Zarathians was relentless, but the eclipse was already turning its attention to the new threat. The KRYLL's biomechanical dreadnoughts were massive, their organic metal hulls bristling with weapons. Their drone fighters moved in swarms, overwhelming their targets through sheer numbers. But the eclipse was not intimidated. Its advanced targeting systems locked onto the KRYLL's command ships, the ones coordinating the swarms. The quantum singularity cannon fired again, its energy tearing through the dreadnought's defenses and creating new singularities that consumed entire swarms of drones. The KRYLL, so used to overwhelming their enemies with numbers, found themselves outmatched by the eclipse's precision and firepower. Their formations began to falter, their attacks growing less coordinated as their command ships were destroyed. The eclipse moved with speed and agility that defied the laws of physics, its quantum singularity engine, allowing it to outmaneuver even the fastest KRYLL drones. The ship's weapons were relentless, each shot calculated to cause maximum damage. The KRYLL tried to adapt, launching waves of drones in an attempt to overwhelm the Eclipse, but it was no use. The ship's advanced targeting systems picked off the drones with ease, its weapons firing with pinpoint accuracy. The KRYLL's dreadnoughts, once a symbol of their dominance, were now being torn apart by the Eclipse's quantum singularity cannon. The battlefield was a maelstrom of destruction, with black holes forming and collapsing, ships being torn apart, and swarms of drones being obliterated. And at the center of it all was the Eclipse, a small but unstoppable force. Captain Reyes watched as the battle unfolded, her mind racing with strategies and calculations. She knew that the Eclipse could not keep this up forever. The ship's systems were being pushed to their limits, and the crew was under immense pressure. But she also knew that they were close to achieving their goal. The Zorathians and KRYLL, so used to fighting each other, were now united in their fear of the Eclipse. Their fleets were in disarray, their command structures collapsing. All that was left was to deliver the final blow. Reyes turned to her crew, her voice calm but firm. "Prepare the Singularity Core for overload," she said. "We're going to end this." The crew moved quickly, their training and discipline evident in every action. Dr. Patel worked to reroute power to the Singularity Core, while Ensign Nakamura monitored the ship's systems to ensure that everything was functioning properly. Lieutenant Hale calculated the optimal point for the overload, a location that would maximize the damage to both fleets. The Eclipse moved into position, its stealth systems masking its presence as it approached the center of the battlefield. The Zorathians and KRYLL, still reeling from the destruction, did not notice the small ship as it slipped into their midst. The Singularity Core began to overload, its energy building to a crescendo. The crew braced themselves, knowing that this was the moment of truth. The Eclipse's Singularity Core reached critical mass, its energy exploding outward in a blinding flash of light. The resulting singularity was massive, its gravitational pull sucking in everything around it. Zorathian and KRYLL ships were torn apart, their hulls collapsing as they were pulled into the black hole. The battlefield was consumed by the singularity, the once mighty fleets reduced to nothing more than debris. And then, just as quickly as it had formed, the singularity collapsed, leaving behind an eerie silence. The war, which had raged for 800,000 years, was over, and it had taken Eclipse just 50 minutes to end it. The crew of the Eclipse watched in stunned silence as the battlefield fell quiet. The holographic displays showed nothing but empty space, the remnants of the Zorathian and KRYLL fleets scattered across the void. The ship's systems were strained, but they had held. The crew, exhausted but triumphant, knew that they had achieved something extraordinary. They had not just ended a war, they had changed the course of history. And as the Eclipse turned away from the battlefield, its crew knew that they had proven something to the galaxy. Humanity was not just a young and insignificant species. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they had just shown the galaxy what they were capable of. The silence that followed the collapse of the singularity was deafening. The battlefield, once a chaotic maelstrom of destruction, was now eerily still. The remnants of the Zorathian and KRYLL fleets drifted aimlessly, their ships reduced to lifeless husks. The Eclipse hovered at the edge of the void, its system strained but intact. The crew, exhausted but triumphant, took a moment to absorb the magnitude of what they had just accomplished. They had not just ended a battle. They had ended a war that had lasted for 800,000 years, and they had done it in just 50 minutes. The weight of their achievement was overwhelming, but there was no time to rest. The galaxy would be watching, and humanity's next steps would determine their place in it. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the holographic displays that showed the aftermath of the battle. The Eclipse S-sensor scanned the area, confirming that no active threats remained. The Zorathians and KRYLL, once the dominant powers in the galaxy, were now leaderless and broken. Their fleets were gone, their command structures destroyed. The war, which had defined their civilizations for millennia, was over, but the cost had been immense. Millions, perhaps billions, had died in the final battle alone. The galaxy would never be the same. Reyes knew that humanity's actions would be scrutinized, their motives questioned. But she also knew that they had done what was necessary. The war had to end, and humanity had been the only ones willing to take the risk. The Eclipse S communications array buzzed with activity as messages began pouring in from across the galaxy. Neutral species, once content to watch from the sidelines, were now reaching out to humanity, their tones a mix of awe and fear. The Zorathians and KRYL, what remained of them, sent desperate pleas for mercy. Even the most powerful empires, those who had dismissed humanity as insignificant, were now scrambling to establish contact. The galaxy had been shaken to its core, and humanity was at the center of it all. Reyes knew that this was a pivotal moment, one that would define humanity's future. She turned to her crew, her voice calm but firm. "Prepare a broadcast," she said. "It's time we address the galaxy." The crew worked quickly, setting up a transmission that would reach every corner of the galaxy. Reyes stood before the camera, her expression serious but composed. She knew that her words would be analyzed, dissected, and remembered for generations to come. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "People of the galaxy," she said, her voice steady and clear. "For 800,000 years, the Zorathians and KRYL have waged a war that has consumed countless lives and devastated entire star systems. Today, that war has ended. Humanity did not seek this conflict, but we cannot stand by and watch as innocent lives were lost. We acted not out of aggression, but out of a desire to protect and preserve. We acted because it was the right thing to do." The broadcast continued, Reyes outlining humanity's vision for a new galactic order, one based on cooperation and mutual respect. She emphasized that humanity did not seek to dominate or control, but to work with other species to build a better future. She called for an end to the cycle of violence and destruction, urging the galaxy to come together in the spirit of peace and unity. The message was clear. Humanity was not a threat, but a partner, and they were ready to lead by example. The response to the broadcast was immediate and overwhelming. Neutral species, emboldened by humanity's actions, began to speak out against the old powers, calling for an end to the divisions that had plagued the galaxy for so long. The Zorathians and KRYL, their fleets destroyed and their leaders gone, had no choice but to accept humanity's terms. They agreed to a ceasefire, their representatives meeting with human diplomats to negotiate a lasting peace. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity, once seen as a young and insignificant species, took center stage. The eclipse became a symbol of hope and unity, its name synonymous with the end of the war and the beginning of a new era. But not everyone was pleased with humanity's rise. The old powers, those who had benefited from the status quo, viewed humanity with suspicion and resentment. They saw the eclipse not as a savior, but as a threat to their dominance. Rumors began to circulate, whispers of a coalition forming to counter humanity's growing influence. Reyes knew that the road ahead would not be easy. Humanity had proven their strength, but they would need to be careful. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and not everyone would welcome their vision of peace. The eclipse returned to human space, its crew hailed as heroes. Parades and celebrations were held in their honor, their names etched into the annals of history. But Reyes and her crew remained humble, knowing that their victory had come at great cost. They had ended a war, but they had also taken lives. The weight of their actions was a burden they would carry for the rest of their lives. But they also knew that they had done what was necessary. The galaxy was now a safer place, and humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. As the eclipse docked at a human space station, Reyes took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them here. She thought of the colony that had been destroyed, the lives that had been lost, and the sacrifices that had been made. She thought of her crew, their bravery and determination, and the bond that had formed between them. And she thought of the future, of the challenges that lay ahead and the opportunities that awaited. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the forefront of that change. They had proven that they were not just survivors, but leaders. And as Reyes looked out at the stars, she knew that humanity's journey was just beginning.